kwako nishamchukua. Penzi ulimdhulumu, visa ukamfanyia. Chachandu vitamtamu, Bwana hukumpatia. Penzi ulimdhulumu, visa ukamfanyia. Chachandu vitamtamu, Bwana hukumpatia. Bwana kapata wazimu, kashindwa kuvumilia. Kwangu wakati yatimu, tiba nikampatia. Bwana kapata wazimu, kashindwa kuvumilia. Kwangu wakati yatimu, nikampatia. Nikampa vitu adimu, kwako hajajionea. Amri akasalimu, magoti kunipigia. Nikampa vitu adimu, kwako hajajionea. Amri akasalimu, magoti kunipigia. Huku akijilaumu, kwako kapotea njia. Huku akijilaumu, kwako kapotea njia. Na tabasamu kanijalia manani. Nimepewa lugha tamu, nyoka hutoka pangoni. Ucheshi na tabasamu kanijalia manani. Nimepewa lugha tamu, nyoka hutoka pangoni. Sifa hizi ni muhimu na mengi mengine ndani. Wewe mkanga sumu, kwako hazipatikani. Sifa hizi ni muhimu na mengi mengine ndani. Wewe mkanga sumu, kwako hazipatikani. Na mapishi yako bomu,
welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are at Saturday at morning here in Africa, and to those who are joining us, we are talking to you from Addis, Ethiopia. My name is Imani Yohani Paulo. As I told you, here Addis, Ethiopia is in the morning, and to you, if you are in possibly America, I believe it must be evening around 6 p.m. So I am so great to join you with our new panel discussion. We are still waiting for our special guest to come in inside the studio. Today we're going to be talking about the Africa Union Summit that is coming up, I believe, in 1 week from now, without African diaspora. So that is where we're going to be talking about today. And I'm so glad for you to join me. I believe that you're going to learn something especially when it comes to Pan-Africanism, since African Union is claiming to be a Pan-African organizational institution. So today we're gonna go in deep and look careful whether or not that African Union is a Pan-African institution for really as they claim, and we're gonna go over the original history of Pan-Africanism. And what happened and how come African Union is kind of isolating, other diaspora people. I mean, the original founder of Africa, or Pan-Africanism, I'm trying to say. Again, thank you so much for joining me. I'm gonna be right back in a second. Let me give you a little music, and then I'm gonna get in, hopefully, with our special guests who are gonna be talking about Pan-Africanism with you guys. Thank you so much. Let me review this music. I'll be right back with you.
Yeah, me I like it. Something so. This my African hands, them gon' love you. Yeah, my African lips, them gon' kiss you. Whoa. My African hips get down you. Whoa. My African legs, them gon' run to you. Whether you come here to break, I say you come here to shake hands. You come here to make plans. Never would you reach this motherland. Whether you come here to rock West, I be not to find good, everything they Never would you reach this motherland. Anywhere you go, London, USA, nowhere be like Africa, nowhere be like home. Anywhere you go, New York, Chicago, nowhere be like Africa, nowhere be like home. Biko weruya wayo, wayaka, karibu kiti, utapewa. Tiningenda mwanzo mchoma, kuchumba mbili wa zungu, akubete kisakita, shanga mabasiga sipabili, ambaza karome, bamkozo muyo kwa ibunda, shanga opwa mbani kujwa, teka monwa bya yanga mabweni siri kenchwe ketangoba, orera baromna, orera ngambe, orera bakoro. Malia Saromo, my way, Malia Saromo,
Brother Eugene, welcome. Brother Eugene, welcome. Thank you so much for turning in. Good afternoon to you today. I don't think I can hear you. Maybe, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you definitely. How are you?
Yes, Habaragani, brother, and peace and blessings to you and your family. I hope everything is going along pretty good there in Ethiopia. And certainly it's a pleasure to see you again here on the New African Network TV and media broadcast.
Thank you so much, and thank you for turning in this evening. Yes, we are in the morning here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and we are doing very well. God is good. Thank you so much. So yeah, I don't know if there is anyone who's gonna join us, so we're gonna keep moving. Today we have a panel discussion. It's gonna be focusing on Africa Union Summit that is coming up and the absence of African diaspora. First of all, I want to ask you a couple questions because I believe that, as I know, you are born and grow up outside of Africa. So what is your takeout when it comes to Africa Union?
Well, I think just starting out the gate with our great ancestors being involved and even putting together such an important initiative coming out of post-colonialism and as well as during the slavery times. It was certainly good for them to formulate and be heavily engaged in their independence, but they also were discussing measures of unification. They knew that there were certain powers that they certainly couldn't battle against at their time period, but to be able to have that extraordinary vision for that time period has certainly come into play of the African Union's existence to today. And hats off to the extraordinary heads of state who has certainly been a part of bringing about reform, but also putting new measures and policies that are in place today that will help Africa thrive and flourish, just like many of the other countries that are here as a part of a major that hold a major economic impact and offer political unification and having the African Union itself to be able to solidify that in our day and time. So yeah, hats off to that. But growing up here in America, certainly we have not forgotten where our roots come from. So Africa is very important to us as well. And I often say myself, if Africa does well, Africans, wherever they may live at on earth, will be fine. And it is certainly our generation who understands this to the fullest effect based on the education and experiences that we have in our day and period. And it is up certainly to the new breed leader, African generation, to make these policies work and work in the beneficial factor for ourselves. FUBU, for us, by us.
For us, by us. FUBU. I think is this where this come from? Is that may come from Marcos Garvey or what? Because it sounds like
well, that is certainly it was a clothing line in the 80s. And FUBU, yeah, exactly. It was a actual label that was created during the hip hop 80s 90s generation. And like Jay-Z's Rockefeller with Damon Dash, all those guys, they created extraordinary labels and was creating fashion in that time. And so when many of the people was going out and spending money on gear that was like Louis Vuitton and you name it, we decided to come up. Those things were unaffordable for us. So, hey man, we created those labels, and it did very well in our time period. So, yeah, that's Black Power right there for its own generational time period, right? They made pretty good money off of it.
I always hear FUBU. In fact, some of my my friends, they call me that as my nickname, but I never know that it was from us, for us.
Yeah, for us, by us.
For us, by us.
Right. It's just an acronym or, a little slang from the street to identify, this is from us or for us, by us, and which is exclusive to something that we hold dear. And, we talk about Black economics, certainly things that we could create and manufacture ourselves. Branding is very important. So we certainly hone in on that marketing piece to be able to share, the cultural dialect. It is certainly was part of the hip hop generation of its time period, the slang and the language that we used. But it was able to make a serious impact and statement, and it really gravitated towards a young community for that time period.
Okay, yeah, very good. Yeah.
Had labels like Tribe Vibe. I don't know how many people remember that, but Tribe Vibe, and it was a whole lot of creativity and just getting into the fact of just ownership. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into some of the dialogue of what the topic of the day is, and mic to you, and then I'll introduce myself, and then we'll get into the discussion.
Yeah, very, very good. Thank you so much. So yeah, today we're gonna be looking into African Union and the accomplishment or where African Union has dropped the ball, and what should we do now? Are we gonna dissolve it and just start over again, or are we gonna continue with it? And if we're gonna continue with it, what needs to take place? Pretty much that's the conversation today. But we're gonna start overlooking where African Union came from. How did we end up to have this, and why a lot of people point out that it may not be working as it's supposed to be. So anyways, go ahead and introduce yourself. My name is Imani Power. I'm talking to you from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and I'm African nationalist. I don't like to call myself a Pan-African because Pan is a Greek god, and absolutely have nothing to do with Greeks or Hellenistic people. So I'm 100% Pan-African, but not, I don't want to be called that, is African nationalist, which means that I believe in the United States of Africa. Welcome, Brother Eugene, and introduce yourself. Tell us where you are, first of all.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Brother Amani, for that nice introductory. And peace and blessings go out to you, to all you brothers and sisters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, wherever you are in Ethiopia. And yes, I'm Brother Eugene Talford, reporting live from Charlotte, North Carolina. I am the chairperson for the Afro Diaspora Political Economic Think Tank organization based here in the United States. We have very close ties to the African Union and linking the African Union with the African diaspora, which in fact has a very broad reach, reaching into the grassroots Black organizations all over the world. We are a Black nationalist organization media platform through the New Africa Network Media and Broadcast, and we provide vital information to our listeners and our viewers in various means. Joining in, I do the Thursday night business broadcast with the New Black Panther organization, broadcasting to millions of people worldwide. But we also have joined forces with other like-minded individuals to be able to come up with resources, putting our minds together to be able to be the people that are in the forefront of this day and age, fight and battle for the humanitarian respect that the Black man and the Black woman deserve here on Earth. So, to make a long story short, Brother Amani and myself, we met at the 2019 Afro Diaspora Political Economic Think Tank Conference, which took place at the African Union headquarters in Washington, D.C., the missionary, which was under the auspice of the Honorable Arikana Chirubir-Nkwa, who was the ambassador there at that time. And this sister has been very dynamic and extraordinary. We call her Mama Africa. Some of us call the female Marcus Garvey of our time period. But the sisters has been opening up the doors through her institution now, which is known as the Afro Diaspora Development Institution out of Washington, D.C., and has many headquarters now that I know of all throughout the African diaspora, being able to relay, share, cross-share information with Africans in the diaspora, with our brothers and sisters who are based right there on the continent, formulating problem solving and solutions that will benefit the children of our day and time period. Black power.
Thank you so much. I see you've been into this African stuff for how long?
Oh wow, man! I've actually been boots on the ground since the early '80s and '90s. You know, with my background and career starting out in the corporate industry, but also I knew the importance of donating time and effort to bring about change through humanitarian efforts. And this comes with many challenges, and to certainly not only be a job provider for the Black community here in the United States through a few companies that I own, but also to be able to be engaged in what the grassroots organizations need themselves in order to make this impact in our communities. So as far as my background with the actual overall industry, starting out working with the U.S. Department of Commerce with the Honorable Ron Brown, who passed away back in 1996. At the time, he was the current head secretary of the Department of Commerce. And I've also donated time with the Washington, D.C. Chamber of Commerce. I headed as a co-chair to the International Trade Committee, and I managed the foreign sector for the Caribbean Basin at the time, but also was able to broaden my horizons by linking into doing business and having a relationship with many of the ambassadors in Washington, D.C. Through the African exchange programs. And as a part of Ron Brown initiative at the time, was looking to reform many of the African trade treaties, and to be selected to be a part of that just coming out of college was certainly a honorary and moving statement that he allowed me to be a part of the task force committee member as a task force committee member. And I was able to really learn a lot about the mother continent, and was able to utilize the information that I had received in order to relay that to our brothers and sisters who may not be aware of certain policies that exist around and certain opportunities, of course, as well, through many of the agencies and governments that have fostered uh, uh, exchange, international trade and investment exchange between our people, but also culturally be able to get the Afro diaspora and especially those from the United States reconnected to the mother continent. It's Black Power.
Thank you so much. And looking at the background or how long when you started, I think that was back in the 80s something. And today, what do you see the spirits of African people in diaspora? I know I don't like to call them African people in diaspora. Actually, I hate this word. I don't really know why. But people who children of Africa who happen to be born in other regions or areas such as Caribbeans and US and Canada or England and so on. What is it? How will you compare the spirits of those people? What do you think?
Well, I certainly think that now we have a very interesting and vital resource in our hands today, and certainly that is technology. And technology itself has opened up a whole door of us getting reconnected and educating ourselves about what has put Black people worldwide in the predicaments that we're in today, that we're faced with today. And like I said earlier, just being able to understand the atrocities that sort of have us in a defunct place. And I'm talking about African people worldwide with the African Afro Diaspora Political Economic Think Tank, by us being linked into many of the scholars and the intellects that we are connected to worldwide, give us vital information and resources about what are some of the problems consisting of, but also having a platform for us to be able to come together and think about what we can do to solve the problems and come up with solutions that we have. So the vital resource that has allowed us to do that is through the transformation of technology and the exchange of information through both media and being able to link our devices now to be sort of one voice. And it's definitely helped us to do that over the past 10 years. And so I take my hat off to all of our brothers and sisters who are taking on the responsibility for what is at hand.
Thank you so much. I see online we have Dr. Kaisa Jingo. Jingo. Can you please introduce yourself so we know who you are and where you are talking to us from? Dr. Kaisa. Kaisa.
Good evening, good night. It's 2:30. I'm in Kampala, Uganda. And
so you are in Uganda. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, in our team last time, someone raised a question like, how come in New Africa Network there is no Ugandan? Brother Eugene, I think you remember that, right?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. But we definitely need to do a headhunt to get those people in there. So that's what we need. We need to build the numbers, and we've certainly been working on that. But yeah, we've had brothers and sisters from all over the world who are connected in these days. We went from a 100-person meeting in Washington, D.C. to now over 300,000 individuals that are connected in. So yeah, we're definitely making some moves there.
Okay, Dr. Kaisa, what do you do? What is your background? Thank you for coming, by the way. I don't know if he can hear.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yes, I should first apologize for having come late. Only that I've just seen the link now. Well, I'm a Ugandan and I live in Uganda, specifically Kampala, and I teach Kiswahili language at the University of Makerere University for the last 15 years. Uh, I've just seen the link now, so I just got interested to join the conversation, but I don't know the background of it. Thank you.
Very, very good. Thank you so much. So we have a panel discussion. My name is Imani. I already told those who are there. I'm talking to you from Addis, Ethiopia. I'm of course African nationalist, but I'm also Swahili advocate. I'm a founder of Ethiopian Swahili community. The organization teach, advocate, and explain the need of one unified language for all Africa, in fact. And Brother Eugene, you see there, he's in South Carolina. He's founder of New Africa Network as well. So we have a program on Saturday, like this time, I will say Saturday in Africa. And Mr. Doctor, he left already. But anyways, I was saying that we have a program in English, and then Sunday we have a program in Kiswahili. Hopefully he's gonna be right back. So now moving on, Brother Eugene. So I was asking you. So if you look at the temperature or atmosphere between based on people outside of his back. Okay, so yeah, thank you so much. You are back again. So now I'm gonna ask you a couple questions because it seems like your internet is disturbing you, Dr. Kaiser. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. One is that we have a panel discussion every Saturday, like this time, in English, and then Sunday, 6 p.m. in East African time in Kiswahili. Every Sunday in East Africa, 6 o'clock. That is around 9 in the morning in the US time, East US time, we have in Kiswahili. So Dr. Kaiser, today we are discussing about Africa Union Summit without African diaspora. As you know, in African Union, there is no space for individuals, people like Kaiser and Eugene or me. Instead, there is a space for government. For instance, if you want to contribute to African Union as Ugandan, you will go, and Ugandan government then they will send to African Union, so you can give your contribution, whatever you want to suggest also is. And African diaspora, they do not have a government to present them. That is absolutely not. They are not presented as America because they are not, America is separate. They are not presented as Jamaica because Jamaica is not a member of African Union. In fact, I believe it was 2015 or 2000 something, Haiti tried to join African Union and they rejected Haiti. So Dr. Kaiser or Cesar, what do you think about that? What do you think African Union should do to include people from diaspora, because they are the one who are the founder of Pan-Africanism? What do you think about that? Can you hear me? Dr. Kaiser? He's gone. Go back to the same question goes to Brother Eugene. What do you think? You guys, you are the founder of Pan-Africanism, but you've been kicked out. Obviously.
Yeah. Well, I'll put it to you like this, Brother Monty. The founding father for what's known as African representation as a collective, and most people say just being part of a Black nationalist or Pan-Africanist, was founded truly by General Toussaint, who led the revolution in Haiti. He was the first African person to stand up against the superpowers. And so when you talk about Haiti not having full representation within the African Union itself, is certainly a slap in the face, and particularly that it also open up the door and opportunity to end colonialism in Africa. So they should be the first on the list to be out of any nation to be a part of that. But as a as a as a media representative and leader in the Black community, and under the auspice of Dr. Eric Kenna-Chimbera, the former ambassador of the African mission, U.S. mission, she has certainly put measures into place, documentation to be able to get, I would say, descendants of African slaves to be a part of the discussions that are taking place in the African Union today. And it is known as the Sixth Region Initiative, which was actually put into play in the year January 2020. So it has not been set up that long to bring us in as a collective group of people, Africans who were born outside of the continent, but also Africans that are repatriating because of whatever reason, maybe due to war or perhaps political strife that may have happened prior in the past. But to be able to bring the brain drain of Africa students that have learned certain skills and techniques from not being there on the continent itself, to be able to bring that enlightenment and information back to the continent is certainly important. And as being a part of that Sixth Region Initiative campaign, Dr. Eric Kenna has been going all throughout the African diaspora, the Caribbean, Central South America, all over Africa, and the UK, Europe, you name it, have been bringing the message to our Black brothers and sisters that you no longer have to be trapped in Babylonian nations, which you have been used and abused, and to be able to foster being a part of the African Union concept of the it does now have a division called the Citizenship Afro-Diaspora Division, and to be brought in through that mechanism is certainly a start. So much of it is still new, and it still has a lot of attention to be directed towards it. And I often say in my lectures and people who I talk to as a part of the movement itself, we are not our parents' generation and we're not our grandparents' generation, which means that our experience is certainly different than they had. And I'm not saying this to say that that any type of derogatory means towards our ancestors, because certainly they have paved the way to put us in a position that we are today, our generation being in the seat that is able to make strategic and choices that could really make an impact for our day and time period, especially when it gets to politics and economics. We are certainly the generation that are able to sit in those seats to make those right decisions and things that we can pass on down to that generation that's behind us. So the African Union is certainly making strides to move towards that, but we also must be proactive as a collective group of people, showing that institution that we want to be more engaged. But however, we also know the realistic side of the institution itself, and it can be puppetized to the point where we have still baby boomer leaders in chairs and positions that doesn't have the strength to be able to take the Black nation in the right direction as far as what it needs for our day and time period. So our generation must be strong and advocating the point to where that we can bring about that change, but at the same time remaining dignity and respect for ourselves and our ancestors, but also uplifting the Black man and the Black woman in our communities, that these are the people to be able to make that extraordinary impact on the things that we're faced with in this day and time. So certainly, but I also say this as a point: when institutions do not work for the people, then those institutions must be set to the side, and institutions must be either the ones that exist have the ability to really make moves, focus the attention on those institutions that are able to do so. It don't have to rely on a government entity to make things happen on the ground for the people, because we all know how that plays out sometime. But we also must understand that the politicians that we elect to be the voice of the people, they must be held accountable for the actions that they portray. And it's no ends if about what is needed. We need strong intellectual people in position that could make change for our day and time. That is certainly the mission.
Thank you so much. So let's go back on the history of African Union, or Organization of the African Unity. It's not a young organization. It was created in 1963. I believe it was around May. And as you said, last 2020, that's when they were able to kind of create. It's not been created yet. What you can call 6 corridor or something like that. I'm not sure if that is even really yet, but you, as you said, that Dr. Arikana, I think she was trying to create something like that. And from all that time until today, how come it was almost like 60, now it's around maybe 63 years old or something like that. No, it's actually 60 years old, possibly. It's going to be 60 years old. Why they never include diaspora from all that time until now? Even today you are talking, but it's still not there. Why do you think is that?
Well, I just think also it was built by design that the Afro diaspora shouldn't have connection to the mother continent itself. And, you know, you're looking at laws in many European, Arabic, and Asiatic countries where if they had people of African descent, whether they came there by the slave trade or whether they came there after the slave trade, the education was built and designed to prop up the nation in which you lived in. So educationally, our children are being brought in to raised up under an education system where it focuses on the person's commitment to the nation itself. And certainly this is something that the African American community has been challenged with over the years, going through the experiences that we have. It has certainly been a mind challenge, and I would think so with any of the Caribbean nations, Central and South American nations, as well as those nations in Africa that actually had colonizers' boots on the ground that was able to administer and doctor to them what they thought and felt that their country should be leaning towards as a nation. And this stuff has been built by design. But now with what we have in hand, the knowledge, the history, things of that nature, understanding what the truth is, and on the New African Network, we always relay a message about peeling back the truth, peeling back the lies to get to the truth. And it is important for us to do so. And as being a part of the African Union, like I said, the 6 Region Initiative, bringing the Afro diaspora into being a part of the African Union is certainly a move in the right direction. So we're hoping this institution will be able to work for the people. The whole purpose of the African Union, which consists of right now 55 member states and quite a few honorary countries that have been added to be a part of that. These nations, along with their heads of state, their ambassadors who represent them on an international level, should certainly advocate more about having us be a part of the inclusiveness around the discussions, as well as the policies, as well as some of the business and contracting opportunities that exist through these institutions like the African Union and the African Development Bank. We are the future for Africa, and the movement towards futurizing Africa is very important as well. There's much to be done, and certainly the African diaspora really want to be a part of this. So we take our hats off again to Dr. Arikana Chirubara, who was able to see this vision and certainly bring this to the attention of the African Union, which we are certainly now a part of. Now, it has not been a position where it is a done deal. It's going to take the work of the African diaspora to be in a position that we're proactive as well. We really have to show them, not just by doing a whole lot of talk, what we can contribute to the mother continent, but also reinforcing that the African diaspora has been the backbone of the unification of Black people. And these movements were started by our ancestors way back in the 1920s and 30s, and through the Honorable Marcus Garvey, a person like him, he put all of us on track, and people like the Honorable Selassie, one of our forefathers, put us on the right track to be headed in the right direction of where we need to go at these days. So yeah, that's my viewpoint right now on the Afro diaspora being as a part of the African Union.
Very good. Thank you so much. So, from 1963, when African Union was established, of course, it was not exactly the same name. It had been adjusted a little bit, but it's still the same. There was not the change of constitution or the change of the procedure. Will you say that African Union has been able to accomplish its mission, or is a failing mission for those 60 years?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it has necessarily been a failing mission, because there's been some great strides come out of that, some great opportunities and information that the people who are in charge of managing and governing the institution itself, if things don't happen overnight. And when you really think about it, many of the African nations have not even been out of the colonial rule for only but 70, some less than 100 years now. So, but to be able to reflect back, that has not been that long ago. It's just been since the 60s that human rights have Black human rights have come into play. Civil rights here in the United States have come into play, and that's just been since the time I was born in the 60s. So for us to see where we are now from what our ancestors have certainly put in place way before we came along, you going back to the 1920s, well, we weren't even thought about during that time period. So to be able to grab the bull by the horns for what they have of the foundation that they have laid for us, and to grab that and take it to the next level. We often talk about leveling up, and it's very important that the magnitudes of what you call leveling up, taking on the responsibility to make sure that the things that have been laid out for us, the foundation, that there is someone to be able to pick that up and continue the legacy of it. And so that's what we're here to do with our connection to the African Union.
Very good. So yeah, I think that when you ask people here about African Union, I'm talking about here in Africa, people don't even know what is African Union. It's one of the things that people just don't know. Citizens, average citizens, do not know what African Union does and what it should be doing, if it's good or not. Nobody knows pretty much. So I don't really know why is that. Even though we're supposed to be serious about it, but it's not happening. So, do you think maybe we should create a how do you call that? Challenging another institution that will challenge African Union to be able to perform very well, or what do you think about that?
Well, certainly the collegiate education system is the first point of contact that the African Union should be making. And when you talk about, me having knowledge of what the possibilities of formulating an alliance, I certainly think about the historical Black colleges and universities right out of the United States here, and being able to uh, uh, again link these institutions to be able to formulate what the actual African Union may need from the African diaspora. And that's certainly the first step. And we ourselves, the grassroots organizations, I hear it all the time, that they have been proactive about reaching out to the African Union to be more engaged. And matter of fact, about a year ago, they hosted the Afro Six Region Initiative, hosted a big conference in Atlanta, Georgia, and there were quite a few hundred people who showed up to this event to actually discuss what are some of the policies that we should put into place to be an active member within the union itself. But like I said, this has just come on to line. We're going to continue to be vigilant, proactive, and to bring forth those Black think tank organizations that could be able to make this thing work effectively. The same type of moves that we're making here in the United States with the reparation movement, the same energy is certainly needed to be put into place, that we make sure that we have a seat at the African table, being that we're African people, and many of our African brothers and sisters, how we may have been disconnected for a few centuries, but like I said, many of it has not been that long ago for most of us coming into the fourth and fifth generational connection to Africa. But being able to cross share educational information and exchange, investment in certain areas of opportunity to build Africa, especially when it comes to investment in trade, investment in infrastructure, investment into things like new smart cities that are coming onto line, also mining of natural resources, but also having the Afro diaspora on the continent to be able to be that voice of opinion when it comes to the resources as well. That land is certainly of our inheritance, and as well as the brothers and sisters who are on the continent. Well, we also must understand that being that is our God-given inheritance, the land itself, that is land where many generations of our ancestors have fought, bled, and died for all sorts of purposes. And for us to be able to be that backbone and safeguard, make sure that the land itself is not over harvested to those that do not care anything about Africa. It is our responsibility that we're there to really safeguard the resources as well. And God put the Black man and the Black woman on that continent for a reason. And it's certainly important for our brothers and sisters on the continent to also understand this, but they also need the African diaspora as a reinforcement that we can work collectively as a group of individuals, unlike how we have been portrayed throughout history, that these Black people don't have the intellect or the know-how or even the audacity to know what to do with these within what they have been given with. And that is certainly not true at all. We are the people who built civilization before any civilization, other civilization walked on the earth. And the pyramids and in Egypt and through the land of Kemet and Sudan. And there are historical sites on the west coast of Africa as well that demonstrated this way before the Babylonian nations came along. So, yes, indeed, we are that generation, and it should be an honor to us to be able to sit at the chair in the seat of what we've been given.
Thank you so much. So back to African Union, because if you have, let's say like back in 1960s, African Union was not created. Where should we have been now? Because there is one thing people do not recognize or realize is that African Union actually, in my opinion, this is my opinion, and I can stand for my opinion, is that we lost the spirit that was in Nkruma of the United States of Africa. We lost that back in when African Union was created. African Union is supposed to be an organization that's supposed to take us to the complete reform of the borders that were created inside Africa by the colonizers back in I believe it was 1845, when there was a Berlin conference. So that was the mission of African Union, but that was the mission or the spirit of Pan-Africanism. In fact, as Marcus Garvey said that Africa for Africans are a home and abode, and also race first. I think a lot of people don't pronounce this very well, but the word race first, it was the movement that will unite Africa. And when African Union was created, people thought that we have landed to what we are looking for. In fact, we did not land even close. If we land in water, not not on the space area or at airport. We land in water, because Africa has been divided on and on. Now we have neo-colonialism, for instance, and this Francophone, Anglophone, and Oxphone, and whatever phones is coming in, and I think later on we're gonna have a China phone, disturbing Africa. It's a very, very big fight among Africans themselves based on who colonized who, not even based on something that is actually real. So, and when you look at African Union, there is no one single effort that African Union has took to fight these things. In fact, African Union is promoting the languages that divide us, which is Spanish, Portuguese, English, and French. It's what African Union is promoting. Even today, the languages that are being taught inside African Union is those languages. So what do you think that we lost our target, we lost our direction? If African Union was not created, I believe we could have been struggled to found the true unity of Africa rather than to have the one that is quote unquote union, but it is absolutely not union, because if I need to go to another place, like you are in South Carolina, you can leave South Carolina and go to any place in the US. You can go to Georgia. You can go all the way to North Carolina. You can go to California if you want, by driving with your driver license if you have one, or your ID. But here, if I want to go to live like even some area, very, very small area, like Gambia is inside Senegal. If I want to leave Gambia and go to Senegal, I need the ID. I need a passport. So we are not united. In fact, that can be even proved by the trade itself. The statistics are showing that the trade between African countries is so low to the measure of any other continent. So don't you think that if we did not end to African Union, we could have been in another place, which may be better or maybe worse? Who knows?
Right. Well, from what I understand, that is certainly the reason why that the African Union has developed a relationship with the Continental African Free Trade Agency, and it is an initiative that is put into place to foster trade zones carved up into 4 sectors, north, south, east, and west Africa. And you have the ECOWAS region on the west, and you have the East African Economic Federation on the right. And then, of course, you have South that has just certainly been challenged with some of the policies that were put into place during colonialization of Africa through the Berlin Conference. But these barriers were put in place by white people. And we know that now, and certainly there are certain things and measures that are being put in place, policies that are being put in place by the African Continental Free Trade Agency to be able to bring down some of the barriers that have been stifling many of our African nations. And this is a message certainly being ministered by Dr. Arikana as well, being able to let these African nations know that these things that were put in place, you no longer have to be in agreement with. And I know you have a relationship with the post-colonial nations, but you also have to realize too that in order to forge out a future for Africa, the boundaries that must come down. Because what has been happening is that in the international trade sector, they have not been able to trade even with the neighbor next door. So you have Kenya right next to Uganda, and Kenya right next to Ethiopia, and you have Nigeria right next to Benin, and Nigeria, right down the street from Senegal, and wasn't able to do any sorts of trading with them, but yet they hold the raw materials as well as the goods and services that need to help propel the economy. So now our generation is certainly bringing down those barriers, whatever it ever costs, and understand the dynamics that what is needed to take place to assure the future of Africa. Africa right now is in what's known as the African Industrial Revolution. We are the generation who is a part of that African Industrial Revolution, and the generation now that is bringing online many of the new manufacturing facilities, the smart technologies that are being developed and cross-shared with our brothers and sisters in the African diaspora, with the brothers and sisters on the continent. These new smart cities that are being coming online and being built. That is our generation making that happen. And so to have the ear of the African Union, institutions like the African Continental Free Trade Agency to be engaged on what the outside investment mean to Africa is certainly a beneficial factor for everyone. So we are certainly happy to see that take place. And, these are policies that we're putting in place for our generational time period. We're going to assure that what we have in hand today, we leave it in better shape to the next generation. And it's very important to share a dialogue about uniting Africa as a whole united front. It is certainly long overdue. And when we realize, based on the genetic makeup of what we consist of as a people that unites us together, we are the parents of the earth. And so we must make sure that the things, knowledge that has come out of Africa, make sure that it maintains and stay in place at whatever cost that it is. And I'm excited to be a part of this and to be able to have the New African Network be at the forefront of just being at the media forefront of making this happen. Hey, man, I can tell you now, man, I get brothers and sisters call me off from all over the world every day, and they thank us for what we're doing. And they also contact me to let us know that they stand with us with what they're seeing here that's going on in the United States, some of the things that we're being challenged with. And when we stand in unification and have that vision, like Dr. Martin Luther King said before he passed away, he said he done been to the other side of the mountain and he see what's going on now. He said, I have the vision now. And it took people to bring him even into light to understand that. So we must do the same thing with our brothers and sisters. We have to bring them into light. What is it expected of our generation?
Very, very good. That's true. When it comes to the trade, I think African Continental Free Trade Area, which is the way it's saying and the policies, I have read some of them. It looks like it's very good. Definitely, it's very, very good. But is this gonna be applicable? That is one of the other question, because even African Union itself, if you look at the Constitution of African Union, it does have some arts in there, of course, but in a big part, it says very, very good things. You know, it says to fight for our culture as African culture. It says to protect our human people and the land and so on. But to put that in application, it has been a problem. So same thing, I believe, is going to happen to African Continental Free Trade Area. When it's to practice practically, it's impossible. You cannot have African the trade, that cannot happen. Why? Because there is a lot of things we need to consider. One is that each country has its own policies and it has to fight its own interests, the best interests of each country. Think about, like, let's say, like you have a product in South Carolina, and in North Carolina, they have to control that product if it's going to come inside North Carolina or not. If it does not respect the best interest of North Carolina, it's not going to come in. You know, I'm talking to you based on the states like that, because that's possibly what is, you can compare North Carolina and South Carolina with Kenya and Tanzania, for instance, or you can consider, you can consider like I don't even know, there is no one single that is inside another one, like South Africa and Lesotho or Eswatini, they are inside like one another. So how do they gonna maneuver around and be able to push this content of free trade? One. Number two, there is no language. You know, trade is basically based on the communication. You cannot buy or sell anything to me unless I understand you and you understand me. There is no way. And as you know, in Africa, a lot of time we just jump and say, oh, those are French speaking. And even though in the country maybe like 2 or 1% of people speak French, we call that French country. For instance, if you go in the Congo, people will tell you, oh, that's French speaking. Congolese who speak French are less than 10%. Or you go in Angola, you may say that's a Portuguese speaking, but obviously number of people who speak Portuguese is very low. So there is no language to say. And when it comes to our local languages, most of them, they just live, they don't even live one city. One city maybe, or one village, you may found more than 2 or 3 languages. So how is that it's gonna work when it comes to communication in order to do the trade? Because if this is gonna be like government-based trade, which means like maybe this country is trading with this country, maybe that is gonna work. But if it's gonna be people-based trade, what do you think should be the plan? Because obviously I don't know, with these borders we still have and the policies, I don't think that's gonna work. What do you think about that?
Well, I certainly think language is important, and that is a sole key piece for the people of African descent getting more engaged into learning Kiswahili, and that is certainly a language that our ancestors had laid out for us early on, seeing that vision, part of it, to be able to communicate through the various languages that we speak today. But I also understand that the human being is very adaptable. And when you talk about having something simple as a language divide, keeping people from really what they should be doing to bring about change in the communities, or perhaps even just doing business on behalf of the nation in which they may be from, that certainly should not be a barrier itself. And the colonizers were smart in how they, and when they went to that Berlin conference and discussed what they were going to do to Africa to divide the people up, they certainly knew that language played a very important piece. So they set up to where they can stagnate which countries were to be educated in the languages in which the colonizers spoke. And this was a measure that was being used to keep the nation divided from the nation next door. And prior to that, when our ancestors was there, prior to the show up of the white man and a part of colonization and slavery, our ancestors had a common dialect from the regions in which they lived, and had a common bond as far as where the boundaries laid at for the tribes that existed at that time. What land would belong to what tribe was already in place, but there were also measures that the land was our land, and Black people were free to move about anywhere in Africa before these boundaries was put up into place by the Europeans, the colonizers. And they certainly have been mechanisms to stifle our brothers and sisters who are on the continent right next door. You know, many of the brothers and sisters, they may have some type of animosity about the nation that's next door to them because of that's not where we're from, but not really realizing that your ancestors had all of that and roam way into the environment and interiors of the next country that's beside you. But the barriers have certainly was put up to place to make you feel like, okay, the buck stops here. When you go across this border, you are now in the jurisdiction of XYZ. Therefore, the policies and the measures that have been put into place to govern this nation should be abided by. So, not even knowing that before the invaders came about, even on the continent of Africa, many of our brothers and sisters was lost family-wise in connections because of these borders. Many of them were run off by guns and bombs and end up in nations where they have their own ancestral connections right next door. But the psychological side of it is that they don't feel like they have any connection to the people next door, when in fact, you're probably only 1 or 2 generations out from being directly connected to someone. Could even be your brother or your sister or your cousin or your uncle or somebody like that, just like we have here in the United States, our relationship connected to Africa. And it's some stuff that we have to psychologically examine today in order to move into the future. And that stuff was built by design. When you talk about language, yeah, certainly we need to get the African nations, if you truly want independence and liberation, there are certain things that are connected culturally, which have a pinnacle in putting us into that place of independence. And that certainly comes with cultural connection that we have, and certainly the Kiswahili language need to be educated in our institutions that we provide to our younger people. That's something we have to do better with here in the U.S. as well, or wherever Black people living at. Kiswahili, as with the track that Africa is on right now, we certainly need to be coming up with some language education institutions that could help foster the commonality that we could connect each other through. Not just about dancing and you know, the visual art that we share in between each other, but the education connection that belongs to a part of our culture, the piece of being able to speak one transparent language and something that is dear to us. We get back to that term again, FUBU. It's for us, by us. And that definitely has to come into play with the language process and the connection that we have with one another as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that the Kiswahili language is, when it comes to African diaspora, I think you guys are doing very good. Actually, I think you advanced from long time. I was looking at the history of Kwanzaa, which, by the way, is basically the lesson of Kiswahili.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it is 100%. If you want to learn Kiswahili, I think you should learn Kwanzaa, because the basic words that motivate and will give you power to be able to think careful is in that the Kwanzaa system that was created in 1966. So it's a long time. In fact, while our African countries, they don't even understand the means of Kiswahili, or in fact, not only the Kiswahili, they only believe that the language that they should learn and teach their children is the colonial language. We African, I don't know really what's wrong with our mind. I don't know why we don't understand that language is a business. Why don't we understand that language is the key to everything? Egyptians, the reason why everyone knows the traditional history, hard work, and the superpower of Hotep people is because they had a language. They could write their language, they could do everything, but they could even communicate. But we African, we don't understand that. Our people, if you look our embassies, the children of our ambassadors, we look our leadership in high classes, like people who are in a position, in a poor position. Their children, that's not only they don't even learn their mother tongue language. Forget about that. They learn French, English, and now they have add on Chinese. We start back in the 80s. We start by studying Arabic. No, it was not Arabic. We started by learning French and English. And then later on, now we are moving to China. We're sending our students to go to China. Back in those days, China was sending their own students to US, but they did not, they never actually, they never stop studying their own language. We're the only one who stop our language to study someone's language. We're the only one who look down our own culture to like, you never see a Chinese who want to be American, or who want to be French, who want to be Portuguese or Spain. You know, we're the only one who want to be Arabs, like, you know, we're the only one who want to be doing all of that. So what do you think we should have, maybe psychological evaluation, or what do you think?
Well, you know, we're just out of, you know, slavery and neo-colonization of our nations. So when you look at the psychological effects that have had on that industry had on African people, yeah, it destroyed a lot of what things that we had already in place. And we often ask, what was it like before the colonializers showed up? You know, before we were taken from the nations, and we were on a pretty good track of going in a direction of policies and governmental structures that our people were establishing. But with slavery and colonization taking place for over 500 years, a lot of information was lost, and a lot of cultural ways of life from our African ancestry had been lost as well. Some of it pretty much had been maintained by Black people, but much of it has been lost because of psychological, the process of being deprogram and reprogram through that mechanism that we went through, as certainly is a challenge for us today. However, the culture itself has not been lost. And that's one thing I can say. All Africans have a commonality through our cultural connection, and we may not be able to speak the same language sometimes, and sometimes we do share some cultural differences, but the overall connection, we certainly are a people that feel the importance of how we're connected and unified through genetic purposes, and that means a lot. So that's what has kept us strong, even after the experiences that all of us have experienced, whether it's been uh, internal or external strife and things, systems that have been put into place to keep us in a position of feeling that we are not worthy of. Uh, those things have kept us from pursuing some of the greater things that we know that we can achieve. But certainly we have been in a place too, under that hardship. You know, my grandmother used to tell me, you know, a piece of coal is a diamond, you know that, right? And which means that it always it's going to take shape and form to turn out to something beautiful and valuable, just because of the pressure that it has been put under. So, yeah, we're a group of people now in the world that have gone through a lot of things, but it is very important that we share our experiences with each other to help heal the atrocities, but also to come together as like-minded individuals to come up with solutions and measures that could carry us forward in the future. We know who the enemy is, and of course, the enemy know who we are as well. But it also take collectiveness when you know that you have an enemy to be able to battle some of the things that the enemy has put into place to keep you divided and down. And we are the generation to certainly do that.
Very, very good. Yeah. So, anyways, I think we're gonna try to end our program today. But what do you think it should be the contribution to Afro diaspora? I mean, African diaspora. Especially, there's a huge diaspora. By the way, we don't talk about Brazilian black people. I don't really know why, but first of all, what do you think we need to do with the Brazilian population when it comes to Africa? What do we need? Why is it so quiet? Why nothing's happening with them? It's very, the population of Brazilians who speak Swahili, who are African descendants, is more than who are Afro descendants. It's more than a whole country of Tanzania. Population. It's more the population of Kenya. They are more than the population of Kenya. So how can we bring them on board? What do we need to do?
Well, we have a good amount of Brazilians that are connected into the New African Network, and we've had quite a few shows where we brought some of the brothers and sisters who are on the ground floor there, and they certainly have the same type of movement we got going on here in the United States too. You know, they are some of them are highly educated about the Black nationalist movement, and it has also been a government created by the Portuguese, the Europeans that have brought them into a division as well. And it takes place all over the African diaspora, because you have some people, black people, who understand the dynamics of things that are being played out on us. And but the educational piece of, like I say now, we have the transformation of technology and the intellect these days to be able to share commonality of what's needed. So, but the Brazilian brothers and sisters down there, yeah, they have a large black community, black society that's there, and they have also been faced with certain challenges kind of same way any foreign nation outside of Africa where African people live at are challenged with the racism that is being enforced through systematic institutional systems that have been put in place for many centuries, and we play into it sometimes. We play into it a lot of times. So, you know, it is challenging sometimes because I know you guys have recently seen how the black police have beat up this young black man here in the United States, and just based on the history over the last 10 years that black people have been going through in the US, you see these guys doing the same thing as the oppressor. So that lets you know there's been a whole lot of brainwashing going on, but it's also built on a psychological oppression that the Babylonian nations have the people in, a defunct state of mind, and sometimes are very disconnected. We call these people, they are asleep, and they are not woke, and not all people are going to be woke. But we also have to understand too, as a collective group of people who are woke, sometimes you got to leave sleeping dogs where they lie, and just let them be who they are, move on. And if they decide they want to be with Babylon, let them be with Babylon, but also letting these brothers and sisters know that you are going to be held accountable and the price is up.
Very good. So for finishing, I think you have saw this, but when there is a Africa Union Summit and United Nations Summit as well, we always have our leaders come there and speak French or English, even those who actually speak the language that is such Kiswahili, for instance. So what do you think, what should we do with our leaders to make sure that at least they speak Swahili specifically? I mean Swahili because that's the one I advocate for.
Yeah, well, you know, it's hard to train an old dog. And sometimes people get set in their ways and may not have the capacity to learn a new language. And this is where the young and the education system come into play, certainly advocating Kiswahili to the governments through the various offices that they have, and especially through the ministries of education. This should be direct contact with these institutions and agencies to be able to voice that, yeah, Kiswahili, along with the rest of the languages that our young brothers and sisters learn, this should be one of them. And if within the connection of the jumpstart of the African Industrial Revolution, having a commonality language that are being put into place by government itself would certainly help with what is needed for the next generation to come into play. But there are plenty Kiswahili speaking Black people all around the world now, you know, here in the United States, you know, especially out of Washington, D.C., where I grew up at, they have many charter schools that do have that as a part of their curriculum. So when we talk about, you know, just the aspects of Kwanzaa, you know, African Americans have been engaged to being educated under that, and especially since the 70s of the Black Liberation Movement come into play, that was at the forefront of our founding fathers of the Black movement, to be able to have an educational curriculum in place for our Black children. And so this is something that has been fostered and grown over the years. And yeah, we just have to be continuing to be the voice of the language barrier that keeps us divided. people like you and myself and many others who are on the front line, who have many positions into making sure that we leave this place a little bit better than it was left to than what it was left to us. And so I often say liberation comes with a price, and you know, some of us don't really want liberation, but the ones that do should be ready. But some of us are okay with just being on the plantation, and certainly, you know, yeah, the educational piece come into play. Well, brother, if you want to stay on the plantation, just go on and be there and just be happy. And you know, my brother Tariq say that those some more some old janky people, or he may have something like some old butter biscuit eating people. You know, we gotta leave them butter biscuit eating people along and just get with the people who are really able to make things happen. We move together as a collective. We certainly could, you know, it's always an open door. And when you get stuck, brother, there's always room enough to come home. You can always come home when you're in the Black community. So, you know, we might beat up on you a little bit, especially when you done disrespected us and put us in a position of, we call in the Black community, they done set us back 100 years now with some actions that they, you know, that they display and sometimes betray. But we are a strong and resilient people, and our Black ancestors, you know, some of what we do today, they turn over in their grave, but many people are doing very good things. I'm talking about Black people at the pinnacle of excellence, and we have to give ourselves credit and pat ourselves on the back, because just based on a few events that may take place that look like it's setting us back, is certainly not the case, because there have been great strides over the years to get us to the level that we are at now, and at the next level in which we're headed to. So I'm very optimistic, and we hope that the African Union itself come around and extend the olive branch to us, because we've certainly extended the olive branch to them. If they take it or not, that's on them. But even if they don't take it, we're a new breed leader African generation, and we're going to step right over you. And that's how we come up. We come up trying to be diplomatical out the gate, and that's very important to understand diplomacy and being diplomat. But we're also a generation will put foot in that ass if we have to. So Black power.
So you got some. Yeah. Let me act like I didn't hear that, you know. But so,
don't worry about it. We grown people. We grown people, and grown people understand grown people language. So you know, this is not language where we talking to some kids on the come up. You know, sometimes they look at me and say, "Brother Eugene, you be going hard, bro." I was like, "Yeah, because you know, sometimes you know, you talk in a matter where you real with the people, and the people understand because they have a connection. And sometimes words are said that may not be, you know, of select choice to. Oh, I'm so appalled. I don't believe you said that." And it's like, oh, come on down off of that high horse and get with what's going on in reality. You know what I'm saying? So you a grown person, you know, get past the how it's said sometime and get to the meat and the potatoes of what's being discussed, the lecture at hand, and certainly we can bring about change and to our own reality times. So
yeah, very, very good. Yeah. So anyways, you guys, it seems like you already have a plan B if maybe African Union does not want to welcome you guys. You got a game around, so let's see what's going to happen. But moving on, before we close, as you know, and a lot of people knows, we have Pan-African calendar, which I'm gonna try to. I was trying to share that on the screen, but it's not coming. I cannot show that, but on Pan-African calendar, we are on February. So February we have U.S. or February 2nd we have U.S. Francis Cress Westering, who passed away on February 2nd, and we also have Malawi, which is his name is John Chilembwe. I want to share his information, actually, John Chilembwe, so that we can possibly know who he was. John Chilembwe was a Malawian or from Malawi. I think we can see that now. Let me see. Yeah, I'm gonna try to stay. No, I can't. But as you can see, John Chilembwe was a Malawian who born in 1871 and died in 1915. He was a Baptist pastor, educated and a revolutionary who trained as a minister in the United States of America. U.S. returned to Nyanza land, is Malawi today, in 1901. He was a early figure in the resistance to colonialism in Nyanza land, which is Malawi, opposing both the treatment of African working in agriculture owned by European plantation and colonial government failed to promote the social and political advancement of African. Soon after the outbreak of the First World War, Chilembwe organized a successful armed uprising against colonial rule. Today, Chilembwe is celebrating as a hero of independence on John Chilembwe Day, observed annual on January 15th in Malawi. So, as you can see, this is one of the figures that we have to celebrate, and I will possibly come up with more information about this gentleman. But next week we're gonna have, actually next week we will not have anything until when we're gonna have South Africa Robert Sobukwe on February 27th. So I think we'll be talking about him on around the week of 26. I think we'll be talking about him. So pretty much that's the history we have. We're gonna have to keep looking what we have as celebrating. But I don't know. Do you know anything about what was her name? Westering, Cress Westering?
Dr. Frances West. Yeah, she was a very extraordinary lady for our time. Intellect and scholar who was able to offer African studies at many of the universities here, and a very extraordinary woman. So yeah, I'll be able to bring a little bit more information about her background to the people so that they'll have a full understanding about our dear sister. She certainly was an extraordinary ancestor for our time, to be able to bring forth the message of Black unification, as well as our historical relationship to racism and why it exists through our day and time. And of course, I'll be able to share that with on the next upcoming conference that we have. But just speaking a little bit about the African Union 2023 conference summit that's coming up in March, the New Africa Network, we did have a delegation of 100 individuals who were from very prominent backgrounds who were interested in sitting down and conversating and being a part of the discussions with the heads of nations. And we extended an olive branch out to bring the delegation there. And I can tell you these people that we have a part of the NEAN 100 delegation has the knowledge, know-how, and the enthusiasm to really move the Afro Diaspora 6 Region Initiative into fruition. But since then, we were told that they did not have the capacity to bring us in at this moment. And we had this discussion with Dr. Eric Hanna, and the president of Zimbabwe have opened up the opportunity for us to bring the mission there in March. And so we are exploring having that meeting that we had planned and meeting that we had put together to bring the delegation down now to maybe have it on the continent in some countries. And so since we've actually had relayed this information, Ghana has opened up the door for us to for them to host it and have it there, have the delegation come there. And we told them the delegation of 100 only consists of the U.S. African delegation, but we have many brothers and sisters from the diaspora that will be coming there, and it probably be well over 300 to 500 people that's a part of this mission to come there and begin to dialogue about the jumpstart of the African Industrial Revolution, but also to voice some of the things that we've been going through in the Babylonian nations. So Dr. Eric Hanna said the president of Zimbabwe has opened up has extended the invitation for us to come there. So there's a delegation of people who will be going to take that mission in March. However, we're still negotiating from the New African Network to be able to continue to host the African Liberation Day leadership conference. And Ghana has extended an olive branch to us. So have Senegal and of course with Zimbabwe. We've also been getting some good feedback from our brothers and sisters in Cameroon who are seeking, have extended the branch to have it come there as well. So that has certainly been exciting for us to see that, yeah, we do, they are people who do care and really want to see us be back on the continent, engaging in dialogue, but also bringing to the table what it is that we have to offer as well. The African community, which consists of more than 40 million people here in the United States, have the highest GDP of the second highest GDP in the United States. As a collective group of people, we generate over $3 trillion, almost $4 trillion annually, and much of this money that is being divvied out. The Black community is certainly being taken advantage of here just based on what we contribute through both the government taxes that we pay and the intellect, as well as the substance that we bring to this nation. And we have been looking at ways to where we can begin to diversify investment opportunities as well as contracting opportunities. And that is the reason why we were going to go to the AU to tell them a little bit about what it is that we can do from the Afro diaspora standpoint, the African population here in America, what it is that we can do and can contribute towards that, and especially with the smart city projects that are coming online, is certainly a beneficial factor for everyone. So we look forward to continuing to organize. We will have some dates and times that are in place, but meanwhile, we have many brothers and sisters who are attached to the New African Network media platform that take many groups over pretty much every month of the year. It's somewhere one of our brothers and sisters that are connected here in the States who have direct connections have been taking people to the mother continent, whether it's their pilgrimage or whether they are going there for cultural or to explore, whatever it is that they may have a need and desire for on the continent. These brothers and sisters are well connected. And like I said, we are the generation to make that happen on our watch.
Thank you so much. So I want to end our program just to let people know that next week we're gonna be in air exactly the same time, which is 6 p.m. in East African time. East African time, I mean East US time, not East African time.
East Coast, East Coast US.
Yeah, and tomorrow it is gonna be in the morning. I think to you guys 6 p.m. here. It will be maybe around 9 in the morning. will be in air also in Kiswahili language. And when we do Kiswahili, we do have a lesson. Those who want to learn Swahili, please, you are welcome to join us. After our discussion, everything is done in Kiswahili. There is no English at all. After we're done, we do teach here and there Swahili words, so that the most of like formula and practical way to be able to understand Kiswahili, because if you speak any other those Western languages, Kiswahili is even more easier when you know the formula, how to make things around. So we have people having program at 6 p.m. in East Africa time, which I believe is 9 in the morning or around that area in the East US time. Again, Brother Eugene, thank you so much for coming in. And if you have anything to close with, please take microphone.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Brother Amadi, you and the brothers and sisters who are on the ground there in Ethiopia. You've been doing an extraordinary job, brother, and we certainly want to continue to support you in any form or fashion in which we've been doing from here. We're fully 100% behind you, brother, for the educational aspects that you've been bringing to the continent itself, making people more aware of what it takes to be unified. And yeah, brother, because of you, we have been well connected on the continent now. And certainly we want to take our hats off to you and give you a big up. The New African Network is very proud of you, you and the colleagues, and you and the rest of the comrades there. And let's continue to move forward with what we have, with what God has given us to do. So Black Power, brother, and a big up to you.
All right, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was our discussion about Africa Union Summit, which is coming up, I believe, in next week, if I'm not mistaken. African head of states will be in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, to discuss the future of African Union, and they've been discussing this for 60 times, which is in the past 60 years. And we absolutely not happy where things has been going. Looking how Africa has been divided. Now we have ethnic divisions, we have religion divisions, we have conflicts between countries and countries. Ethiopia itself, there's a conflict going on between Ethiopia and Sudan on the borders, which definitely, if we were a union, we should not have the borders between Sudan and Ethiopia. We have now been talked about conflict between Ethiopia and Kenya. Now it's down. We have another conflict between Somalia and Kenya. We have conflict between Rwanda and Congo. We have conflict between based on the border, based on Sudan and Egypt. By the way, Egypt and Sudan is the only between those two countries. That's only a place that is not claimed by anybody. If you want to have your own country, you're welcome. There is a free place in Africa where there is no countries claiming that area because of the conflict. If one claim it, then it's gonna lose another one. So for that reason, there is a area is not claimed. But you know, there is so many conflicts based on the borders. Artificial borders were replaced by colonizers. So we have so many conflicts going on, and African Union absolutely have not been able to resolve those conflicts at all. And I don't even think they can, because those conflicts, some of them, or most of them, in fact, even the ethnic conflicts will be shut down if we are united. Trust me on this. There is no one single small group of people, malicious, we want to overthrow a government that is United States of Africa. I don't think there will be any, because it will be so big, you can't conquer that. You know, you cannot.
For sure. And especially when you talk about uniting the legalities of what we need to have in place to protect the people's interests, and as well as the military force. We together as a collective, you know, that's powerful within its own self. If Africans unite, we have our own African military base. Won't be no conflicts of interest.
Yeah, so is definitely not I believe that African Union haven't not addressed. I don't even think it's in they plan to address those issues. So we're still in a losing position. But also, I believe that this summit, African Union summit coming up, President of Burundi, Evariste Ndayishimiye, President of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni Kaguta, President William Ruto of Kenya, President Paul Kagame of Rwanda, President of Mozambique, Philip Nyusi, President of Tanzania, Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan will be able to deliver their speech in the Kiswahili language because they are talking to African people. So we are waiting to see if they're gonna be able to make that move that no one has made it before. So that being said, that was it for today. I love you guys. I will see you on next Saturday, where we're going to be talking about other topics. I believe that we're going to have a special guest, if I'm not mistaken, but let me see. I will let you know the information, and our contact is also on this video down there. You can always contact us if you want to be our special guest. Be blessed. Have a nice weekend. God bless Africa. God bless you where you are. One love.
One love.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. See you next time.
All right.